Hi everyone, I'm Andrew. I'm here with Himanshu to talk you through a large dataset which we collected for our data analytics assignment number 3. We've collected this data from the World Bank. This presentation combines two datasets. One dataset which reports CO2 emissions globally on a per country basis, and another dataset which represents population by country. The data has been cleaned for analysis purposes but has not been modified beyond this. First of all, we've presented the CO2 emissions per year for the past 20 years. It's worth noting that the trend is slightly upwards towards 2013. However, there are some years, such as 2009, which are noticeably down. This is likely the result of the global financial crisis, where consumers were buying less, meaning companies were producing less, resulting in less emissions. Next, we have the global population. We can clearly see a steady increase over the 20 years presented. Note that the totals are higher than what you'd expect for the actual population. The data collected by the World Bank has been grouped in some cases, such as North America, which would include Canada and the United States, each of which countries are also individually represented. Next, we've presented the top polluting countries in 2013. This is the last complete year in both data sets that we collected. We chose this year for completeness of reporting. It's interesting to note that Qatar is considerably higher than the other countries represented here. We'll look at this in a different representation in further slides. Next, we've presented the top polluting countries in 2013 on a geographical map. We can see that there is a reasonable spread of geographic locations across the globe. However, there are a couple of larger dots in South America and the Middle East here. These larger dots represent countries, several countries in these regions which made the top 20 pollution list in 2013. What we've done here is we've overlaid the top 10 countries with their CO2 emissions and their population. It's the same line graph, but please note that there are two y-axes here representing two individual scales. The light blue line represents the CO2 emissions and the dark blue line represents the population. It's interesting to note that whilst there is somewhat of a trend, in particular the countries in the Middle East seem to have a far lower population than the CO2 emissions. At this point I'm going to hand over to Himanshu, who will take you through the bottom 20 countries and some of our conclusions that we can draw from this data.
Thanks, Andrew. Now let's take a look at bottom 20 countries. Burundi produces very little CO2, whereas Comoros on the right hand side produces approximately 8 times as much as Burundi. Same data, but on a graph, interestingly, all bottom 20 polluting countries are located in continental Africa, maybe because of lack of industries there. CO2 emissions and population together in a graph for bottom 20 countries, it is quite visible from the graph that population and CO2 emissions are not directly linked for all the countries. And that's the same case with top 20 countries. Therefore, we thought it is a good idea to take a look at some of the workplaces CO2 emissions data, Wesfarmers for example. It is quite evident from this graph that they have done really well to reduce their carbon footprints from 2012 until 2016. They have reduced their footprints by almost 20%, which is a great job. Now let's drill down to their businesses. Coles has been really doing well since 2012 until 2016. Kmart, on the other hand, has been doing well until 2015, but certainly something has gone wrong in 2016. Officeworks, comparatively less producer, but not much improvement every year. Target has started to do well since 2014. Bunnings, very interesting data here. They are increasing their carbon footprints every year. Now we are more interested to know what Coles has been doing differently than Bunnings. For that, we went online to Coles' operation page and we found that they are doing a lot of things to reduce their energy usage. They are using LED, climate control, solar panels, and trying to do the same things in their transport. And that's why they have gained certification for first sustainable supermarket, On the other hand, Bunnings, they are also doing the same thing, but they are still trying to reduce their energy usage, and that's the difference here. Some conclusions to draw from this data and story: that emissions have increased approximately 13% in the last 20 years, and population has steadily increased over the past 20 years as well. Top emitting countries are in Middle East and the lower ones are in Africa, maybe because of less industries. CO2 emissions are not directly linked with population. Wesfarmers as a group is doing incredibly well to reduce their carbon footprints. Coles are their top performer. Bunnings is still struggling to reduce their energy usage. In general, workplaces needs to bring down their electricity consumption, and this finding is also in line with what Victorian government has been trying to do. For example, energy saver incentive. It is good to set aside targets and funds for workplaces. For example, NAB. They have set some targets to achieve by 2025 and they have set aside some funds as well. Thank you.